Good morning and welcome to the EU Clusters Talks. This talk is a great opportunity for us to talk about the impact of the simplification agenda and the Omnibus Package on clusters and SMEs across the European Union. My name is Andrew Lansley, and it's my privilege and pleasure to be with you this morning and to help to moderate the discussion. I'm looking forward to a very interesting and helpful discussion of the simplification agenda with contributions from the European Commission and from those who are supporting clusters and SMEs across the European Union. For us, this is a very important issue. SMEs make up the great majority of businesses and a very substantial proportion of the industrial and economic activity of the European Union. Mario Draghi's report made it very clear how important it is for EU competitiveness, for the innovation and enterprise, which is so often represented by SMEs, to be brought forward. But also he identified, and the European Commission has taken forward, the principle that the imposition of regulations can impact disproportionately on SMEs because of their relative modest resources. And it is very important, therefore, for the simplification agenda to understand SMEs, to respond to SMEs, and to make adjustments wherever it is possible to do so to reduce those compliance costs and to promote competitiveness. And and we will hear more about how this simplification agenda can reduce costs and, even more importantly, promote substantial increases in economic activity and enable the competitiveness of Europe to be maintained and enhanced. I'm looking forward to our agenda today, and in particular to hearing from Adrian Schertz, the Policy Officer at DG GROW, about the Omnibus Package, and then to take us into an exciting panel debate. Between the two, you, the audience, who are extremely welcome this morning, will have an opportunity using Slido to offer your views and give us, all of us, your take on the Omnibus Package and how it can work to benefit small and medium businesses. Those of you who've been on used Slido before will know there will be a QR code which will reach, which once you scan the QR code, it will enable you to answer the questions. Do please use the Q&A function or the chat function to ask questions, or indeed to share things like references and specific information which would be helpful to colleagues. I can see that people are using the chat function from right across Europe to greet colleagues this morning. Let's move, you will note that, of course, the session is being recorded. Let's move, please, as soon as we can, into news from Nina Hopman, part of the team who helped to support the European Cluster Collaboration Platform. Tell us news of upcoming events, please, Nina.
Many thanks, Andrew, and good morning to everyone. You might have already seen it, but we also like to flag it in our EU Clusters talk that the upcoming EU Industry Days will take place in Poland on the 5th until the 6th of June, and registration is now open for Europe's flagship event on industrial policy with the support on the Polish presidency of the Council of the European Union. And the agenda for the EU Industry Days will focus, of course, also on competitiveness and decarbonization, looking into innovation and investment, as well as security and resilience of EU industry. So the event to be, and you can register now, and we will see you all in Poland for the EU Industry Days. Regarding some events organized by the European Cluster Collaboration Platform in collaboration with local hosts, our Clusters Meet Regions events, and we do have a side event to the EU Industry Days within Clusters Meet Regions, where we will discuss the role of clusters to strengthen regional economic development and to enhance the collaboration between cluster organizations, policymakers, businesses, and research institutions. And the one in Poland will take place on the 3rd to 4th of June, with a two-day program with higher level discussions, as well as networking opportunities, looking into dual-use technologies and defense readiness, circular economy and decarbonization, and unmanned and autonomous systems as the main focus areas of the Cluster SME region. So when you register for the EU Industry Days, don't forget to register also for the Cluster SME regions, which will take place 2 days before the EU Industry Days. In case you have a last-minute opening next week in your agenda, we like to invite you to come to Palma, to Spain, on the 14th and 15th of May, where we will have the Cluster SME regions there to discuss especially resource efficiency, sustainability practice, and circular economy models. The event will bring together the wider range of stakeholders, both from the Balearic Islands in Spain, but also from other EU member states, looking to discuss with cluster organizations, local SMEs and businesses, and the policymakers how to best develop circular economy models and to bring about the green transition. So register in case you'd like to join us next week in Palma. And if you would like to host Cluster SME regions, the call to host is still open until the end of this month. It is especially directed towards regional authorities as the main host. And you can check out the call for expression of interest, as well as the application form in the white book on the webpage to have all the information. So if you want to become a host of a Cluster SME region event, please apply until the end of this. And last but not least, we do have more events upcoming from the ECCP, not only Cluster SME regions, but also matchmaking events. And you see here some named. We will go to Cairo in Egypt, to Umbria in Italy, to Cluj in Romania, and also to Slovenia. And more in store that will be published shortly. So keep a lookout on the ECCP for all the upcoming opportunities for you. And with that, I hand over back to you so that we can get started with it.
Nina, thank you very much for that news of upcoming events. Thank you for that. Let us turn to the substance of our discussion today, which is about the simplification agenda and what the Omnibus Package has to offer. And we're delighted to have Adrian Scherz with us, who is Policy Officer at DG GROW, expert on this. Adrian, please take us through what we can see in the Omnibus Package and its relevance to SMEs, please.
Yes, hi. Thank you very much, Andrew. My name is Adrian Scherz. Let me introduce myself. I'm a Policy Officer in DG GROW, in the unit Simplification and Planning, in the Directorate for Simplification. So in DG GROW, we have created the necessary organizational structure to follow the simplification agenda up. Let me also say that's an honor for me. I wanted to keep my presentation relatively short. I hope that works out. But for me, it's very important to listen to stakeholders. And listening to stakeholders, that's one of the very important features of this new simplification agenda, which was started in autumn last year with the von der Leyen's political guidelines. Let me first say, simplification efforts are nothing new. It came in under the REFIT program, for example, which has been around since 2004, where we tried to make the existing EU legislation more understandable, easier to handle. It came about with the SME exceptions, which have been going on for years and years. We have an SME unit in our in DG GROW that always tried to make these derogations and exceptions in inter-service consultations of proposals from other DGs. So SMEs have always been recognized as I don't say backbone again. This is one of those skeleton images, but of course it's recognized that the SMEs are the core of the economy in Europe. That's very clear. So exceptions were always there. Better regulation tools were introduced. It's been around for 20 years already. You know, SME check has been around for quite some time. The SME panel, SME tests, competitiveness tests have been around. Now they've been made mandatory, basically. But so a lot of these instruments were already there. Now, von der Leyen took up the issue more forcefully with the start of her new mandate. This is also because it has become very, very clear that for the companies, the administrative burden is an inhibition to invest. You know, we had the EIB investment survey where enterprises were asked, are you willing to invest in Europe? And yes, but of course, one of the big barriers to investment has been the heavy load of administrative burden coming from legislation. Now, omnibuses. Omnibuses has become a synonym for the whole simplification, but in fact, it's a tool. It's quite a good image because an omnibus has many passengers, and so what we try to do is to have in one omnibus having a simplification idea, reduction of reporting obligations by mentioning different other EU legislation that can be changed and amended. So you have in one omnibus, it's the driver. In that case, it would be DG Grow, and then we are having sort of passengers amendments to other DGs legislation. But it's only a tool. We can still do other things, and we plan to do other things, just very simple repeals of reporting obligation that has been done that can be done very quickly. The thing, however, is the moment we have this omnibus adopted by the college, by the commission, it will go into Parliament and Council. And we have asked the co-legislators to discuss them relatively quickly. But of course, it's their prerogative how deeply they discuss. But the moment it's adopted by the Commission doesn't mean it comes into reality. It still has to be discussed in Parliament and Council. So we need the support of the EP, and we need the support of the member states in order to put them into reality. That's one of the prerequisites. Let me go to the different omnibuses. It started in February with the sustainability omnibus. There we had basically three initiatives that were coming up. That was about the due diligence requirements in the CSRD, the Corporate Social Responsibility Directive in taxonomy, the corporate social due diligence. We had also the issue of the CBAM, of the carbon border adjustment mechanism. And here you could very clearly see what we did with the omnibus. Again, that was a change to different legislation and keeping the actual goals. For the CBAM, it became very, very obvious that we still want to pursue the decarbonization, and this carbon border adjustment is still there, but it was turned around. Basically, again, by exempting small volume imports, but by still pursuing big volume imports, we are able to fulfill the goal of decarbonization further, but we exempt the small volumes. That means also in the end is the SMEs. That was the first sustainability omnibus. The second one was what was called on the same day, it was adopted 26th of February, the Investment Simplification Omnibus. That has to do with, that was some easing, some alleviation of a burden around the InvestEU, basically InvestEU program. So that's easier for companies to get access to finance. And I understand we hear later some financing opportunities again are presented by this cluster meeting. Then, of course, there are omnibuses in very different fields. I can say there is a agricultural common agricultural policy simplification omnibus that's coming up very soon. There will be an external omnibus coming up also this month in May. We are the defense omnibus that will include amendments to defense procurement, also with a view to SME participation in the defense efforts. The chemicals amendments will be there. There will be the CLP, classification, labeling, packaging of chemicals coming up. Fertilizing products and cosmetic products legislation. So chemicals is one big issue. There will also be a revision by the end of this year that has been announced quite a few months ago. There will also be a digital omnibus, amendments to potential, including cybersecurity data and also artificial intelligence. So you can see it's very different fields, and the planning goes basically with all these omnibuses into next year. So you have quite a few. Automotive is in the discussion at this moment. So we don't know exactly yet what will be the outcome of the omnibus, but it's in the planning because it's one of the sectors where there is, of course, a big downstream industry which needs to be alleviated from administrative burden. The next, let me go a little bit more in detail in the next omnibus that comes from DG GROW. That is the one on small mid-caps, which is supposed to be adopted on the 21st of May, together with the new single market strategy. This mid-caps omnibus, as we call it, will basically extend many of the exemptions that SMEs have in legislation also to mid-caps. Mid-caps then would be basically the size of 250 to 1,000 employees, including the turnover criteria. But basically, in order to help SMEs grow, the scale up of, to help the scale up of SMEs into mid caps, and hopefully even bigger than later on. But mid caps is in the center. And this was also announced already in the political guidelines last autumn. Discussion has been around for quite some time on mid caps. So, and this now finally is the product. And again, it will cover different other legislation as passengers in the omnibus to include also mid caps. Where this list is fluid, this is why I cannot present slides. It's fluid because we started, or we are still discussing with other policy areas, with other directorate generals to include more. And so it will cover quite a variety of amendments. Let me also say that a large part of this is listening to stakeholders, and this is also why I'm here. In the political guidelines, you could see that there are implementation dialogues at high level foreseen. There are reality checks, as we call them, foreseen. That means a discussion of the Commission with practitioners, actually with reality checks means we discussed directly with companies and listen what from their perspective, what the burden is. And I very much hope that I get some answers also here. I mean, the reality in Europe is very different. We are sitting in Brussels, and then we need to get this influx of reality and of what people telling us. I can tell you we have received a lot of information from companies, from associations all over Europe with proposals where we could simplify legislation. By the way, the industry days that have been announced by Nina earlier, that will also be opportunity simplification, will also be there, a panel discussion. Actually, we are preparing also some of this input there. Again, it's an opportunity to listen to what stakeholders think about simplification and where the proposals are. To conclude, the ambition has been announced by von der Leyen. It's the 25%, 35% for SMEs, reduction of administrative burden by the end of the mandate, which has been given a figure, 37.5 billion euros should be alleviated. It's figures. I mean, in the end, it's also it's very important to see where the largest impact of these omnibuses are. We have heard that the first sustainability omnibus is was quite important in that respect. So, but I look forward to listening to what you have to say.
Adrian, thank you very much indeed. Can you tell us? I think there's a sense of trying to, if one's an SME or somebody who's representative of SMEs, where would one look best to understand what is the content of some of these omnibus packages? How would one best understand what is both the content and the current status of some of these packages? I think Daniela was asking in the chat about content and status of the packages.
Yes, best it would be, of course, you go to our website of the Commission Europa website. There you have and then go to the simplification. There's a simplification, better regulation website. There you can see the state of play and what we are planning to do. And I would rather suggest to go to your associations, to go to the clusters, EU clusters talk. I know that the collaborators of these websites, EEN, they are quite well informed. So you can turn to them for the latest information. Those are the two sources that I would recommend.
Okay. Adrian, thank you very much. Are you able to stay with us for the panel discussion? And we'll move into discussion.
Yes. Yeah.
After we've had an opportunity first to bring our audience into the issues and invite our audience to offer some of their views. Using Slido, if you use the QR code and access Slido, I'm going to put 3 separate questions and hope that our many participants are able to give us their views. The first of which is about which aspect of the package, the omnibus package, do our members believe, do our participants believe would have the biggest impact, either on their organisation or through their organisation or their cluster with their members. And we have a number of options: the reduction of sustainability reporting obligations, the simplification of due diligence requirements, ease of access to finance via InvestEU, the exemption of small importers from the carbon border adjustment mechanism, or indeed others. And if you are able, feel that there are others that have the biggest impact, it is, of course, available in the chat if you're able to put those up on the chat. So we have a number of colleagues who are responding to that. Let's see what the view is amongst those who are responding. We have I can see the number of people who are replying. The exemption of small importers, Adrian was referring to that, the small value imports removed from the CBAM requirements, due diligence requirements under the sustainability directives, the access to finance, Adrian was mentioning the benefits available there, and the reduction of sustainability reporting. So amongst those who are replying, I think we have still one or two still responding to this. So okay, that's grand. So we can see the sustainability reporting is the substantial majority view of having the biggest impact. Let's take our second question in the Slido poll. Now, this is not offering particular options, but asking you, please, to tell us what you feel presents the greatest opportunity that the Omnibus package present, or indeed, as Adrian was, I think, very well explaining to us, there are a number of omnibuses. We tend to say you wait a while and then several omnibuses all turn up at once. And Adrian was telling us about what those several packages look like. But what do they represent in terms of an opportunity for you, or indeed for your members through the cluster? I can see that some of the messages that are coming through: cost reduction, giving time, indeed saving time and giving extra time, that is enabling small people responsible for smaller enterprises to focus on the enterprise rather than on the compliance costs, and the time taken is very significant sometimes. Postponing obligations, that's interesting. Somebody is saying giving people not just time but also greater opportunity to secure compliance. Limiting the obligations of reporting. Simplification is the central word here that people are seeing. These are all part of a common pattern, which is about reducing paperwork, saving time, simplification of requirements. Of course, there are two aspects of this. One is, on the one hand, not changing the reporting requirements, but changing the time and the effort that is required in order to comply. The other is actually changing exemptions from compliance requirements, giving SMEs a greater freedom of action in relation to some of what would otherwise be regulatory obligations. Well, thank you very much. So we've got a number of our participants who've given us that word cloud on where the opportunities lie, and simplification and cost reduction, time saved, all feature in that. Let's move on to the third of our Slido questions. Now, the third one is about support tools. And here we're looking for what you feel are the ways in which, from your point of view or from that of your members, if you're a cluster organisation, what would it be helpful for you to navigate the Omnibus package? So the sorts of things, I'm going to lead the witnesses. So we're talking, for example, about once-only reporting. Adrian mentioned the reality checks. There are also competitiveness checks. There are ways in which those who are required to report, whether they can access additional help in doing so. Stress testing, I think Adrian mentioned the importance of stress testing. The the digital by default options, and the refit program, which Adrian mentioned, which has been around for some time but continues to be an important part of the process of feedback and ensuring that the regulatory requirements are fit for purpose. So information transparency, yes. More standard documentation. Is there a thing there to do with digital? Digital by default is one of the drives, and a shift from paper to digital is one of the drives for the Commission in terms of reducing the compliance cost. Is there, we're seeing some of those come through, offering guidelines. One-stop shops is always an interesting mechanism for giving SMEs the ability to secure compliance without excessive time and obligation. Somebody has mentioned there, the FRAG info tool, clear communication on changes for SMEs. That's one of the objectives that we very much in the platform, cluster collaboration platform, try to support. Webinars like our own now giving people access to information, and indeed giving greater guidance. Good, thank you very much. We've got a number of the kind of tools that could be used, which I'm going to feed back into our panel discussion as well, and ask our panelists, I know, who will be following what is being put up here on this Slido response, the support tools that people might find helpful navigating the changes. Okay, let's move into our panel discussion. We have, in addition to having Adrian from DG Grow, who gave us the overall introduction to the subject, we have three panelists: Raffaella Bruzzone, who is the Chair of Access to Finance at the European Enterprise Network and is from the Chamber of Commerce of Genoa. Sophia Zakari, Director of Enterprise and Legal Affairs at SME United, and Werner Paminger, CEO of Business Upper Austria. Let's, in that order, let's ask each of our panelists to give us first their own introduction. We're starting, of course, with you, please, Raffaella. You're concerned particularly with access to finance. We know that SMEs, from the many discussions that we've had here in the clusters talks, that SMEs in particular find securing finance and access to finance one of the most important obstacles to growth, and indeed one of the particular threats that SMEs constantly have to face is that of managing cash flow and finance. How do you see the simplification package offering opportunities for SMEs in terms of giving access to their capital and financial requirements?
Thanks a lot. Yes, good morning,
good morning.
Andrew, and you all. Thanks a lot for having me here. It's indeed a challenging discussion, I would say, because the omnibus packages are so wide in scope and also in actions they foresee that it's quite difficult to keep it short. But nevertheless, I'm more than pleased to have seen already the feedback from the audience, because some of the answers which have been shared with us are indeed what we believe as well as members. At the same time, as you said in the opening of the Enterprise Europe Network, the largest EU network to support SME competitiveness, backed by DG Grow, and for what concerns myself, being member and representative of a Chamber of Commerce. So we do care about, in particular, the SMEs development, which is, as we are used to say, the backbone of our not only regional, national, but European economy. This said, one of the actions foreseen by the omnibus packages is indeed tackling the InvestEU program, which is the EU flagship program for what concerns financial instruments. And it could play an even more relevant role in the diversification of the portfolio SMEs can have to support, to back their investment strategies. And these, I guess that the simplification which are proposed in the Omnibus package would hopefully allow even the smallest size companies to get access to it, provided that I guess that still even figures are quite, let's say, positive for what concerns the usage and the implementation of the InvestEU so far. But we do believe that at local level, at proximity level, the program may be sometimes not that well known among, in particular, the smallest sized companies. And that's why we are trying to play the role as a facilitator for local companies to understand, first of all, which are indeed their needs for investment and which are the tools that can best fit their expectations and their needs for investment and for growth. So our role could definitely be to even reinforced by these simplification procedures in the process of signposting those companies that maybe still rely a lot, in particular in certain European countries, because there's a huge difference across European regions and countries in this process. But for instance, in Italy, still a very high percentages of companies refer to bank loans, and they do still not have that mature cultural, financial culture to, to look and to go for and bid for alternative sources of funding. So we do hope that the simplification packages involving InvestEU, would ease the process. And if this could be also considered, it could also help to make smoother processes for financial intermediaries willing to apply to become indeed a financial intermediary for the program itself. Then I will have some more.
Yeah. Thank you very much indeed. No, thank you for that. That's really interesting. I mean, one of the things you said there was about the differences in access to finance in different parts of Europe, and part of that is, of course, different attitudes towards bank loans in different parts of the EU, and indeed quite often there are expectations of where finance comes from that differ. But is there a way in which for SMEs they can access wider sources of finance across Europe? So I know there's been some talk of while there may not be a single capital market yet, there might be aspects of a single capital market that are relevant and available for SMEs. And that, of course, by itself would be, as it were, a simplification process.
Yeah, indeed. That's a very critical point, I would say, because, for instance, we are living in a cross-border region, and we are trying our best, along with our local stakeholders, to try to look at potential, let's say, strengthening collaboration between cross-bordering regions and financial institutions to deliver financial products open to companies living in that area. And I know this kind of process is going on in all, let's say, the borders within Europe that exist. And even though it's a very challenging experience, because legislation can differ from member state to member state, given the threshold of the EU legislation. But again, this is part of the simplification process that should be tackled. And if I may say, for instance, in the Omnibus package, what could be indeed a sort of critical point could be the freedom of action left to each member state in adopting the legislative measures that are put forward by the omnibus packages, because that could maybe not, but it could lead the way to differences across member states. So that's a point that we are, for instance, also tackling by means of the European territorial cooperation programs like the Interreg family programs, which help fine-tuning legislation, collaboration across member states, sharing a border to allow a more harmonized context across European regions.
Raffaella, thank you very much.
Welcome.
If we may, we'll come back to you during the course of the panel discussion, but first I want to bring in another of our panelists, that is Sophia Zakari, who is Director of Enterprise and Legal at SME United. Now, SME United, as indeed Adrian was talking about, is one of those key organizations that enables the views of SMEs to be brought together and represented in the legislative and policy-making processes. I wonder, Sophia, if we could come to you. We've seen what our audience feels is most important, that is in the sustainability reporting processes. From your point of view at SME United, how successful do you think we might be, and what are the criteria for, how do you think we might judge whether we can give SMEs reduced compliance, and how do we go ahead with making that happen?
Thank you very much, Andrew, for your question and for the invitation. I think indeed this reporting exercise under the CSRD has created a lot of concerns from the beginning of the process when we were negotiating the CSRD. EFRAG has been developing this voluntary standard for SMEs to be able to provide companies in scope the necessary information, because we should not forget that companies are not in scope of the CSRD. They are de facto not required to report under the CSRD. What we know is that there is this trickle-down effect of European obligations. When companies in scope have to do something, they will go to their supply chain. And maybe on the side note, this is why we always explain that exemptions like this, they do not work. Because if companies are not, SMEs are not in scope, we don't think about mitigating measures, and still they will feel the impact. So exempting SMEs is not the solution as we see. So we've been developing this voluntary standard. EFRAG has been working with the banks, with the financial institutions, with large companies, and with SME organizations to try to make the bridge between what companies in scope and banks need and what SMEs can really report on. This has been a very long process. We are not at the full end, I would say. The first draft last year was still extremely complex. And this is what I always explain. This is my job. I studied law. This is my day job to go through this standard and the guidance. If I find it complex, I'm not sure an entrepreneur will go through the whole thing at 9, 10 p.m. after a full day of work. So it was extremely important to still reach simplification. And when we say simplification, it's not only on the content and on the data points, because of course we have to still have this balance with what companies in scope and banks need. Otherwise, they will continue asking other things. That's what we have in the VSME, but it's also on the language, on how you ask the question, on how you guide companies in using the standard. So this is an effort we've been also working on with EFRAG and with the Commission. EFRAG published the last version of the VSME before Christmas last year. I think we've reached good progresses. I think we still can simplify and clarify the standard, but we have to work with that now. Maybe there are some data points that we can still discuss, but we have to work with that first on making sure that the market is going to accept this voluntary standard, because the goal with this standard is ensuring that SMEs will report only once on a unique questionnaire to all of their business partners. If companies continue sending additional questionnaires, we lose the goal. But what we need for that is also to ensure that financial authorities send this signal to banks and companies that it's okay, the data points from the VSME are enough, there will be no sanctions if companies working only with SMEs can only report on those data points, because what we see is that companies want to protect themselves. And so they tend to over-comply and ask really complex questions to SMEs. So we have to work on the market acceptance of the VSME. This is why as SM United, we've been advocating for at least having a recommendation from the Commission on the VSME. And at the end of the process of the Omnibus, because the Omnibus on sustainability is also revising the content of the standard for big companies to report under the CSRD. So if this standard is simplified, then of course we will have to go back to the voluntary standard for SMEs and see what we can still simplify. But this is a work we have to do there, and training for SMEs as well.
Sophia, forgive me. Perhaps I think I'm not understanding. So maybe can I just ask again? So if one is an SME and of course one is a supplier to a large company who has their sustainability reporting requirements, and there in that company there's somebody who's trying to fill all the necessary data in, they don't want to see that their suppliers left out, because of course they have obligations not only for their own activities but from their suppliers, and they want to include the data from the suppliers. Is it that you're saying, so we're not exempting SMEs from this process, but how do you include the data for the large companies? Is it that I saw one of the ways of doing it would be for large companies to have, as it were, a standard format for small businesses in that sector, and that would be, as it were, that can be taken as read. If you've got small businesses in a sector producing a particular product, there is already an assumption that can be built into their data, and they don't need to go and ask the SME anything, and they don't need to provide any specific data themselves. Is that the route? So it's not technically an exemption from sustainability reporting, but actually the SME doesn't need to do anything by way of their own data.
That would be the dream. I mean, because again, SMEs are not required to report. So indeed, I think the goal of the CSRD was to have big companies reporting by themselves on those different data. The reality has been different. So this is why we had to work on a voluntary standard, and this is why we have this omnibus, because of all the concerns and the practices around. But indeed, we could have this option as well to make sure that companies work on their own data and don't go to their supplier. And maybe this is something we can also discuss later on, but this is also the question on the omnibus regarding the due diligence obligation and how companies do their risk assessment, how do they do the mapping. We have to be very clear on that point, that it's not by sending thousands of questionnaires to the supply chains, but it's an internal work with the basis on the already available information that companies have.
Okay. Because of course, SMEs don't want to be thought to be not contributing to the sustainability objectives. They want to be part of the green transition. They want to have green finance, and they want to have green jobs, and they want to secure our environmental and climate objectives. So I suppose really that we want to have for SMEs the ability to be part of the green transition, but without undue compliance costs. That's really the objective, is it?
It is, and again, sometimes I feel like we are losing the goal. SMEs are, of course, I mean, if there is no planet, there is no business. SMEs are working with the local community. Most of the time, the big majority of SMEs are micro companies. They are really close to the staff, to the local community, to the environment they are working on. But we have to be realistic as well. And I think the issue we also have with those reporting standards, when they are super complex, asking for policies, what do you do to comply with UN guidelines or whatever, the SME doesn't know. What they know is that they take action. And they don't have the time, they don't have a legal department to write thousands of documents and policies. They take actions. They don't have that in written. And when they are asked something like this, it seems complex, and it seems like, oh no, they don't. well, actually they do, but we have to meet them halfway and make things clearer and simpler for them.
Sophia, thank you very much. Can I turn now to Werner Paminger, who is the Chief Executive at Business Upper Austria. Werner, can you tell us something about how SMEs, from your point of view, are viewing the opportunities for simplification of regulations? What, from your experience, what is it that they are seeing as the potential benefit, and what is it they're asking as the process continues? How do you think the simplification process can benefit your members?
Well, thank you for the kind invitation. I mean, what we see at the moment here in our region, and we are serving roughly about 2,000 companies in 8 clusters in our organization, with about 85% of those 2,000 companies are small and medium-sized companies. And I mean, what they see and what we see, and I want to say what also Sophia said, that I mean, the SMEs, they want to be part of this green transition. They see how they can benefit in the long run, but in the short and medium term, their competitiveness is really, really under pressure due to various effects, due to the high inflation and the high increases on wages and energy costs. And what they have to do at the moment is to really gain productivity. In our case, most of those companies, about 2/3 of our GDP is derived from exports and internationalization, which means they need to be competitive and to stay competitive on an international level. And their competitiveness is really, really under pressure. So they need to really make choices about what is actually solving customer problems and what is considered slack in terms of extra costs for their operations, not adding to solving customer problems. And this is more or less, I think, what our companies see as the opportunity of the whole omnibus packages, that you can make more difference between what is adding to solving customer problems and what is slack, what is just more or less reporting activities and is not adding any value in terms of gaining productivity. And I think it comes down to those things. Where do you actually take action in being part of this green transition, and where it is more or less just doing reporting activities, considering those activities? I mean, I always bring the example of my wife is working in a hospital, and they introduced this kind of reporting activities some 10-15 years ago. And also there at the beginning, it was much more important to do the reports about the treatments they did. It was not so important anymore. Do you actually treat the patient in the right way? It's more important to do the reporting. And over time, they came more and more to the conclusions. I mean, it's much more important to take actions and do the reporting afterwards than to do it the other way around. And also here, I think I see the big opportunities for our SMEs to really take action in the right direction towards this green transition in terms of solving customer needs and problems, and reducing slack in terms of non-productive activities. And especially SMEs are, as it was mentioned before, probably are not so much directly affected by all those regulations, but much more indirectly by their big customers, by their large enterprises, by banks, and so on. And I think this is what we are here at a certain point of crossroads, because I think the SMEs are under pressure. It was mentioned before that our SMEs also here in Austria are very much debt financed, not so much equity financed, which means they are having disadvantages when it comes to international finances. And if our company operated owned SMEs lose more or less the faith in Europe as their future. I mean, we can end up that a lot of them more or less will sell to foreign US or Chinese-led companies. And I mean, we see them here because there are the companies, they're here at the doors knocking, and they want to buy into our markets. They want to buy into our assets. And I think that would be not the way we want it, that we sell off our good family-owned SME base as the main source of competitiveness here in Europe.
Werner, thank you very much. One of the essential requirements of the simplification agenda is that this is something that is not only taken up by the European Commission in terms of EU legislation, but is equally supported and reflected in national legislation. Do you find in practice that this conversation is a shared conversation, shared objectives, and we don't find conflicting reporting requirements coming from national governments, even as the European reporting requirements are being reduced?
Absolutely. I mean, we especially in Austria, we have a tradition of a golden plating system that we end up sometimes with more and golden plates than adapting European regulations, because we have very let's say, efficient government institutions, and they want to be a little bit faster, a little bit better than those EU regulations. So, of course, it is conflicting, and especially in regions, and Austria, where I'm from, is a federal state, just like Germany, which means there is an extra layer of government structure there with on the state level, which is actually not reducing this kind of legislation at all. So especially in federal systems, I think we have to be much more careful and aware of those multiple regulations on a European level, on a national level, but also on a state level. Our companies find sometimes particularly hard to go through this kind of legislation, because Sophia mentioned, I mean, she's a lawyer. Our SME owners are usually come from an engineering background, or they have like a vocational training activity. So they find it hard to come along with to obey all this kind of regulations.
Right. As a representative organization, you said you were 80% SMEs.
Yeah, 85. Yeah.
Yes, indeed. But of course, like so many of the cluster organizations, it is a relationship between large and smaller businesses, quite often operating in sectors. Clusters are often representative of particular sectors. So the conversations that can take place along supply chains is absolutely critical here. And what we've been hearing from Sophia, not least, is the real importance of that supply chain working together. Are you finding that clusters can play that particular role of ensuring that the supply chain carries forward the objectives of simplification?
Absolutely. I mean, in our cluster structure, we use this kind of supply chain. Those supply chains for the sake of innovation. I mean, we see that our cluster structures work best when we use this kind of value chain and supply chain activities for developing new products and services, which means there is a lot of trust necessary to come up with some new products and services along the supply chain and those value chains. And I think also in this matter the whole issue of transforming the industry towards a more greener transition, I think along the supply and value chains is the way to do it. But here again, it's much more about taking concrete action and less to do all the reporting requirements, but it's more important to do it than to report it. And this also comes down to the issue of a lot of trust. We see that in our established cluster structures for the sake of innovation, trust is compensating for a lot of different things like the lack of information and the lack of legal frameworks along these collaboration networks. And I think when we focus on that, focusing more on outcome of this transformational activities and less on each individual player along the value chain is having all the documentation ready for whatever needs to prove his or her activities, and we focus on outcome of a whole value chain activity. I think that would be much more the way forward, just like in European projects in the past, where it's much more now, I think, going into direction, looking at what's coming out and not sticking to all the rules, regulation, and grant agreements, no matter what is the outcome. So that could be like something where we can go forward on that matter.
Werner, thank you very much. Can I jog back to Sophia, if I may, just to, I'm quite interested, Sophia, that we were hearing about the reality checks that Adrian was talking about in his initial overview. From your point of view, in SME United, are you a participant in these reality checks? Do you bring the SME voice into the legislative process, not only when new legislation is being considered, but actually looking at the impact of existing legislation and compliance requirements and subjecting them to a challenge from SMEs? Is that something that SME United is able to do?
Well, indeed, I think those reality checks are very good exercises, and it's also a good signal that the Commission is more than open to hear from the SME perspective. We were, of course, participating in the discussions before the omnibus, but I think now that we will have those reality checks more and more and on different topics, it's important to have them both ways. Looking at what we have, stress testing the acquis, what is working, what should we change. This is very important, but we also have to have those in the elaboration of new legislation, not to repeat mistakes we might have done in the past and reaching a situation where we have to have thousands of omnibuses to fix some loopholes of the past.
Right, thank you. Adrian, you've been listening, you saw the Slido responses and listened to our panelists. I think one of the things that really has come through very strongly is the importance of operating on a supply and value chain basis, not just relating to organizations in isolation. So that question of the exemption of SMEs is not necessarily as effective as it might be. Sophia was making that point very clearly. Adrian, how can the Commission take that point and push for the achievement of our shared objectives in terms of policy, but reducing the compliance dramatically for SMEs, even if the larger companies take on the burden of reporting?
Yes, thank you very much. I come to your question a little later because I had from panel discussion, I had some insights, and it coincides with the thinking here. I mean, first of all, digitalization, the once only reporting, very important, and the dream of our Director General here is that we have a document-free single market. That means you have all the information that are required by authorities, be it on every level. You have it stored once only, and then if there are requests, you just click a button and send it on. That's one big thing. Then another one. The legitimacy of reporting. We get a lot of data. Authorities get a lot of data, but what are they doing with them? Are they dumping them in some cloud and never see them again? Actually, we have in our DG a little project that looks at the legitimacy. What are other authorities doing with that information? I can understand very well that for financing, this information is required. But what else? Statistics? How does statistics help competitiveness? Can we not do it with artificial intelligence in the end? To get that data, not just typing them in and dumping them somewhere. Another one is the gold plating. Yes, the single market only exists because there is EU legislation. Don't forget that. So we are not deregulating because that doesn't make sense at all. You wouldn't have a single market. Gold plating has a positive and negative. Gold plating comes from the idea that there are in every country, there are different levels of competitiveness. So you give it on to member states to make different. So the Commission would, EU level would have a minimum standard, and then member states can, according to their economy, strength of economy, a little bit kind of balance it out for them. On the other hand, that destroys the single market. You have I'm just taking the waste and the labeling of waste. You have very different requirements in every country, which means that a manufacturer cannot sell his product because he has a label, he has a green label on it. He cannot sell it in another country who forbids this label. I mean, this is stupid, frankly. So you have those two ideas there. Also legitimacy of, I mean, where does all this reporting comes from? It comes from a distrust. You have different fashions in economic governance. You had this free liberal market where, like 15 years ago, where it was said, let manufacturers do what they want, it's fine as long as it helps. Then came in some more distrust. Then we ask companies, do the reporting so we can control them a little bit. This is now a fashion that is going in a different direction again. So that's the thing. For the supply chain, I mean, the discussion and what you asked, Andrew, the supply chain at the moment is, as far as I know, with this due diligence, we are limiting the big companies from what they can actually ask from the small companies. That was the purpose of that sustainability omnibus. So we limit it and make it again freer. Again, we say if a company wants to comply with due diligence voluntarily, it's fine. It will give those companies an advantage on the market, what they can say, but they're not required to do it. That was basically the idea of this omnibus. So it's the limit of the limiting of the trickling down effect of reporting.
Okay, Adrian, thank you very much, and can I thank all of our panelists, who I thought brought some very important, very helpful insights into how the SMEs are responding to the opportunities of the simplification initiatives that are coming from the European Commission. Thank you very much. And indeed, thank you, Adrian, for your insights as well. Before we close, I want to give an opportunity for Nina, please, to tell us about funding opportunities that are available through the cluster collaboration platform.
Many thanks, Andrew. Before we go there, I think we have one unanswered question in the Q&A, maybe.
Oh, do we?
Quickly take that, just to check whether that's in scope our discussion. I will just read it out from Jorge. Our companies are interested in knowing if simplification is going to impact the process of preparing EC R&D proposals and the management and justification of the projects in Horizon Europe and in future FP10. And maybe we can have a quick answer on that, and just to not leave this unanswered.
Okay, thank you. Thank you. Yes, from Jorge. Adrian, are you able to say whether the simplification process will reach into how the R&D proposals are prepared for how they accept SME proposals?
You mean could you again?
So this is a question about the when in the R&D programs, for example, in Horizon Europe. Are these going to be simplified? The process of seeking to support through Horizon Europe.
Okay, that would be RTD. I cannot see it for the moment. The discussion there is more on the future. You know, in 2 years, the financial framework, multi-annual financial framework will run out, and then we'll have completely new ones afterwards. So yes, it may very well be in this discussion on the future of the Horizon program, on a future competitiveness fund, which has been announced by von der Leyen. Based on the idea from a letter at that time that a lot of different programs that are around, hundreds of different programs, they should be more tuned towards the goal of competitiveness, so a competitiveness fund. That's the discussion we have.
Okay, thank you, Adrian. Thank you very much. Nina, and I think as ever, Nina, you and your colleagues will also, it's a good opportunity just to remind people that we can follow up on all of these issues through the continuing work on the platform and the opportunity for people to maintain the discussion through the platform itself. So, but tell us a bit more about the funding opportunities, Nina.
Thank you, and just to, and also thank you everyone for the discussion. Just a few calls that we would like to share with you that are currently published on the Funding and Tenders portal, and that might be interesting for your members, for the SMEs. One is the Stage Sustainability Transition Program, which supports European industrial SMEs in transitioning to sustainable and competitive business models. And this is a 3-phase program with sustainability assessment, with training and capacity building, and with advisory and investment support. The deadline for these is the 31st of May, as I said, published on the EU Funding and Tenders portal, and you will find the link in the chat so that you can share it with SMEs to apply. Then going more into the direction of research and innovation, there's a call open that might be interesting for you. It's called Teaming for Excellence. Here, we're looking into reducing disparities in R&I performance across Europe to support the creation of new or modernization of existing centers of excellence in low R&I performing countries. So projects should support and have improvements in the scientific and technological have and capabilities, as well as include collaboration of leading research institutions across Europe and to enhance innovation, potential and services processes and the deadline is 20th of January next year, and you find the info on the EU funding page. And one talking about food system, also having this call in the whole sustainability discussion. The call is called Transforming Food System, Reshaping Food System Interactions, Fostering Food Innovations and Empowering Sustainable Food Choices. Proposals should address one of the following themes as you see in the screen: sustainable and resilient food systems, new foods, or empowering sustainable food choices. Select one and apply until the 9th of July. These are some calls that are currently open. More will, of course, always come on the EU funding attendance portal, so have a look at it. Thanks, everyone, and back to you.
Thank you very much, Nina. So let's just remind those who are interested in cultural and creative industries, I know many are, there is a week from today, the next clusters talk is Creative Crossroads, Building Synergies Across Ecosystems with Cultural and Creative Industries. So an opportunity for those in those very important sectors. Can I just further thank our speakers and panelists today for all of their very valuable contributions. You can continue the discussion through the platform and the general discussion group there. I know you will. And also, please, I want to thank all of our participants. It's really important that you were with us and responding to the Slido poll and giving feedback and responses. You can follow, you can see this again or catch up with any of the cluster collaboration activities through the platform, through the various social media that are listed there. Do please include the Clusters Talks and ECCP hashtag in your social media postings. Thank you all very much for being with us. I hope all of those who are interested can be with us in a week's time on the cultural and creative industries. But for now, have a very good day. Thank you very much for being with us, and keep close to the European Cluster Collaboration Platform for more news of value to your cluster and your members. Thank you very much indeed.